Okay, hey everybody, Teching and Barry here. Welcome back to the show. I got a hammer with me today. Is it going to be used for anything in the video? Am I going to hit anything with the hammer? Am I just going to be holding a hammer for the entire time in this video for no reason? Who's to say? Maybe it's a subtle threat to Barry that if he doesn't get his act together back there, I'm just going to, it's finally time. It's finally time. Barry, I brought you into this world and I can take you out. It's been about 4 years now. I think it's time we do a reset. How about you? Okay. So chapter 1077 came out today, officially. A lot of stuff to discuss, a lot of stuff to unpack in chapter 1077. Obviously, the big cliffhanger is, something involving the traitor. Who is the traitor? We're probably going to be finding out in the next chapter, very likely. We saw Shaka getting shot, so that's a problem. Could be talking about that. I could be talking about literally any of the fights right now that are going on between the Seraphim and the Satellites and the Straw Hats. We have the epic team-up between Lucci, Zoro, Kaku against S-Bear and S-Hawk. They found out about the Lunarian thing. I could be discussing that. Nami facing off against S-Shark. Could discuss that. Actually, a lot of people were quick to bring up, because in the review, I said that Nami should have the type advantage against S-Shark because she's obviously an electric type, and S-Shark, being a fishman, cloned from Jinbei, is obviously a water type. But a lot of people brought up, well, S-Shark has the power of the swim fruit, allowing him to swim in the ground. So he's actually a dual type water ground, which is going to be very, very difficult. He's doing the Wish Cash strategy against Nami, so that's the reason why Nami isn't going to win. So unless they can get a grass type, unless Aramaki shows up and fights against S-Shark, I'm pretty sure that she's just defeated right there. Could be talking about that. Could be talking about the Vegapunks. I mean, just a lot of stuff to discuss today. A lot of options on the table. So anyway, about Lilith's bubble gun. We're talking about the bubble gun. Why? Because the bubble gun fascinates me, okay? I want to talk about the bubble gun. I'm going to put this hammer down before I accidentally... I don't know if you guys noticed, but I tend to move my hands around a lot when I film these. The last thing I need is for me to, smash this hammer right in my front teeth and just get it knocked out. So I'm going to put that over there for right now. But anyway, Lilith's bubble gun, all right? She showed up with this thing several chapters ago. I thought it was a laser bazooka at first, and I'm like, oh man, Lilith's gonna go ham on all those Seraphim, and then she reveals it's actually a bubble gun, and I'm like, okay, that's fascinating. And even Franky and Usopp are like, is that gonna be useful at all? And she's like, oh yeah, this is Egghead science right here. Bubble gun. And in the last chapter against S-Snake, she properly displayed how this bubble gun actually works. It does in fact fire a bubble. She can even rapid fire the bubbles, like boop, 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 boop. And the bubbles have the power of the sea contained in them. Now, I don't think she directly stated that these bubbles are like sea stone condensed in bubble form, and that's what they are. She just said it was the power of the sea inside of a bubble, and when they came in contact with Devil Fruit users, immediately made them weak. So even though it wasn't directly stated or anything, or maybe the wording might have been a little different, because Vegapunk has already clearly been experimenting with Seastone, we saw that with the underside of the Marine ships and all that stuff, all the weaponry that the Marines utilize, like Smoker's staff has Seastone in it. It's very obvious that, this is some kind of sea prism stone science that Lilith is using right now. It also kind of confirms something that I've been throwing out there for a while, which it's one of those things that's never been straight up said in One Piece, but you can kind of, just infer it just through what happened. So, Seastone, we've actually never seen this stuff in its actual raw form, which is fascinating to me. We always see the byproducts of it, like, the Sea Prism handcuffs, although the entire handcuffs are not usually made out of Seastone. Sometimes, like the ones on Punk Hazard, maybe they'll just be the chains. Seastone chains actually exist as well. They wrapped up, the Straw Hats in Law during Punk Hazard. Caesar did that, so they couldn't use their abilities, but Law switched them out so they could use their abilities. So there's Sea Stone, there's Sea Prism bullets. We saw that being utilized. Well, actually, we saw that in Film Z, a long time ago, but that was non-canon. Actually, the first character to actively use Sea Stone bullets in the story was Madillo Man, the Armadillo Smile user we saw in the Udon prison. He's the guy that had the Sea Stone bullets. So, yeah, we've seen bullets, we've seen nails, we've seen freaking lipstick. That Stussy used to take out Lucci and Kaku, Seastone lipstick. But we've never seen this stuff in its raw form, but clearly Vegapunk is able to, like add it to the underside of ships, and it also apparently affects the ocean around it because when the ocean evaporates, it like the chemical that is in sea prism, which is pyrobrine, you know, actually evaporates with the water cycle and condenses in the sky, and that's where you get island clouds. So I always threw out the idea that like, okay, sea stone exists in a solid form. It's a stone. It's also likened to diamonds often. Oda will say it's a substance that's about as hard as diamonds, which hard as diamond, interesting in that own right because diamonds are breakable. Don't think that like it's impossible to break in diamond. It's actually completely feasible to just take a diamond, set it down, and then smash it with a hammer, and it could break because it's very rigid, which also increases its fragility because there's like if you hit it with something hard enough, there's really nowhere for that energy to go except crack and break. But it's good for like cutting and stuff, you know, like so they use diamonds to like cut things into various like metals and things like that. But it's certainly not unbreakable or some kind of invincible material. It's very hard, but that doesn't make it unbreakable. However, you could look at it like that, or you could look at it like Oda just said it was diamond, so it's unbreakable because this is anime. It's just like the things in One Piece that are unbendable, unbreakable, ladies and gentlemen. Seastone, poneglyphs, Whitebeard's mustache. Okay, there it is. Those are the three unbreakable substances in the One Piece world, all right? In which case, poneglyphs might actually be made out of seastone. I wouldn't be surprised if they were because seastone is very prevalent in Wano, and also that's where the poneglyphs were created by the Kozuki clan, by the stonemasons. So there it is. Was Whitebeard's mustache was the last road poneglyph the entire time. He dyed it from red to white. There it is, right there. So they're gonna have to go to Sphinx anyway, dig up Whitebeard's corpse, find his mustache, and like decipher the poneglyph, and then there you go. That was the only place to keep it that would be safe. Whitebeard knew what he was doing, okay? So anyway, yeah, it's really hard, but it definitely has a solid substance, okay? But there's also a gaseous form of this, or at least the pyrobrine does. It indicates there's a gaseous substance of it, which means there's probably a liquid substance to it, which was most likely confirmed in the last chapter with the bubble gun, all right? We're having fun, right? We're having fun here talking about the bubble gun. Also, going along with this, I want to talk about the exact name of this substance because looking into it, rather interesting, okay? So what is that substance called that is like the kryptonite in One Piece for all Devil Fruit users, okay? If you are a dub watcher or if you've been reading the Viz manga for any apparent time, you will call that substance Sea Prism Stone. That is what they use pretty much ubiquitously in the dub, okay? Sea Prism Stone. The actual official name, and I always mispronounce it. I always say Karyoseki. It's not actually pronounced that. It's actually, because I never actually sat down and looked at the kanji and phonetically, like, what makes up this word. But when you actually do that, you discover something interesting, and it's even mentioned on the wiki. So there's 3 kanji that make it up, and it's actually pronounced Kairoseki, not Karyoseki, Kairoseki. So Kai-ro-seki. 3 kanji, all right? The first kanji, Kai, is just the kanji for ocean. So in Japanese, whenever you're using kanji, if a kanji is by itself, which remember, a kanji is just a logosyllabary, it's just a symbol meaning a word. So this symbol right here just means ocean. Umi, all right? But depending on whether or not the kanji is by itself or it's part of a word, the reading of it will change. So by itself, the kanji is just umi, and then as part of a word, it has a different reading, which is kai. So that's where that comes from, okay? So kai just means ocean. We're following along so clear already. I'm going to skip over the second kanji, ro, and I'm going to skip to the last one, seki, which uses the kanji for stone, or ishi, clearly meaning, you know, stone, gem, rock, something of that nature, okay? So, sea, stone, or ocean stone, whatever. Ocean gem, I guess, is another reading, but makes sense. However, there's a third kanji that's right in the middle of this word, which is ro, and it doesn't seem to be prevalent in any particular translation of this word. And that kanji for ro can mean a tower, like a literal tower, like a vantage point, a tower. It could mean turret. It could mean lookout, any sort of high vantage point. It could also mean belvedere. Belvedere, tower, turret, lookout, belvedere. What the hell's a belvedere? Like Mr. Belvedere? The show about the butler that like only I and like 2 other people watching this right now have ever heard of? Belvedere. I'm looking that up. You know what? I'm looking that up in my dictionary. Yeah, Tekking has a dictionary. I don't know why I said that like it was a flex. Actually, you know what? No, that was a flex. I have a dictionary. Yeah, weird thing to flex on YouTube, but I got a dictionary. Do you have a dictionary? Check this out. This is the new Merriam-Webster's dictionary. This is the 2020 version of a dictionary, okay? Check this out. Okay, anyway, Belvedere, Mr. Belvedere, noun, a beautiful view, a structure as in a summer house designed to command a view. Okay, so all of these references are to things that are very tall, places where people could live or climb up or have a vantage point that are very tall. But, the literal translation would be like ocean tower stone or sea tower stone or something like that. And that got me thinking about like, is there any kind of large structure, tower-esque thing that's in the ocean in One Piece? Impel down? I mean, now does that indicate... I don't know what that means, because we still don't know a lot about Impel down. But, like, when was Impel down built? Is Impel down built out of Sea Prism, like, bricks? You know, Barry's entire extended family make up the greatest prison in the entire world? Obviously, there's a lot of Sea Prism in Impel Down, but I don't know. Just food for thought, because that was just my mind wandering, okay? But that's just the name of it. I just wanted to bring it up because it was kind of interesting, okay? So anyway, though, this stuff exists in solid form and obviously liquid form, all right? So that's most likely what the bubble is. Keep in mind, at the end of the day, a bubble is just a liquid, because you have a liquid, and then you pick the little bubble wand thing in there, and then you blow into it, and it creates a bubble. Technically speaking, every bubble actually has two substances. There's a liquid that actually is the bubble itself, and then there would be a gas, some kind of gas, inside of the bubble. I'm probably thinking way too much about this, but it's a bubble gun, so I'm curious about the bubble gun. So one thing we do know about Seastone, though, is that it doesn't matter if it's even a small amount of the stuff. If any part of this comes in contact with a Devil Fruit user, actually physically touching them, or in the case with, like, the Kairoseki nail that was used against Law by Hawkins during Wano, if it was just a tiny little nail, just a small little nail that Law didn't even really notice when he got stabbed with it, he was unable to use his room. He was unable to use his Devil Fruit abilities just from this little tiny sliver of Seastone being pierced inside of his flesh. So if a Devil Fruit user comes in contact with this stuff, even a small amount, their abilities instantly wane, they're unable to call upon them, and in some cases they get weak. And we saw this perfect example with S-Snake in the last chapter. She only barely grazed the first bubble that Lilith fired, and she immediately fell to the ground, weakened by the effects. Now, she recovered from that fairly quickly, but then when Franky picked up the bubble and just bloop, like placed it on her, she was unable to move. Okay, so, she, basically played it off like she was in a lot of pain, and that caused Franky to back off, and then she attacked him again. But if they just left the bubble on S-Snake, then that fight would have been taken care of, right? Easy peasy. So, yeah, it clearly is Seastone, because it falls along with, like, everything else. So Vegapunk figured out a way to take Seastone, a solid substance, convert that into liquid, or rather, considering we're talking about this pyrobrine substance that's in the ocean that evaporates, that might be the actual chemical that causes this, okay? So maybe he just extracted that pyrobrine chemical and then took that, maybe it exists in a gaseous form, and he figured out a way to turn that into a liquid. And then he used that liquid inside of the thing. Or maybe, now that wouldn't make any sense, if the bubbles that were created with the bubble gun, like the bubble is just a regular bubble, it's just soap, but the gas that's inside of it is like pyrobrine. Maybe. I don't know. I guess that wouldn't make a lot of sense, because the bubble comes in contact with you. It would have to pop for the gas to be effective. Has that ever been tried before? I'm thinking now. Could you put, like, some kind of, like, poisonous gas inside of a bubble gun and then launch it, and then the bubbles are, like, fine, and then when they pop, it's like, ugh! Could that happen? I don't know. That seems like something that could be used in anime in some way. Probably already is used in anime in some way. Some other stuff about Sea Prism, though, that is rather interesting. Devil Fruit users are actually capable of knowing whenever Sea Prism is around. Well, okay, sometimes, all right? There's sometimes where a Devil Fruit user is able to just just sense that Seastone is in their presence, you know, because it's like their natural weakness, like the sea. And so they're like, there's Seastone over there. I have to be careful. Other times you have situations with Luffy, like whenever he was in the cage that, you know, Crocodile made at Alabasta when they fell down, you know, Luffy like grabbed the cage and he's like, damn you, Crocodile, oh, I'm weak now. So that might just be chalked up to Luffy's brashness. Maybe in that case, you know, he just like immediately fell in the cage. He's like, let me out of here. Oh, wait, I'm weak now, okay? But in some cases, it definitely seems like they can sense it. So that gets me thinking about, because we're talking about like Mother Ocean a lot, or like Mother Nature in One Piece now, that was like referenced by Vegapunk not too long ago. That makes me think if there is like some kind of magical aura about the ocean, and since Seastone, it's been described as the ocean in solid form. Really, at the end of the day, if you just want to be straight up with it, it's basically Oda's answer to like, okay, the one major natural weakness of all Devil Fruit users is the ocean, but what happens if you're on dry land? What would happen, for example, if the Straw Hats went to a desert nation where there's not a lot of water? Well, you know, there has to be a way to bring the power of the sea on land, so that's where Oda came up with the whole idea for Seastone. Really, if what we're thinking of that was basically the reason. But wouldn't it be interesting if the sea in general kind of emanates this sort of force? Because all Devil Fruit users seem pretty well aware, like it is common knowledge to all Devil Fruit users and pretty much every civilian in the world, even the ones that live in parts of the world that might not encounter a lot of Devil Fruits, like once you eat a Devil Fruit, the ocean is now your natural enemy. That's actually the way it's usually phrased too. It's not just like, sometimes it's just said like, oh, you can't swim or whatever. No, it literally says you become the enemy of the sea, like you are cursed. All right, that actually goes back into the 4Kids dub where it's actually not the devil fruits, because you can't say devil on American. Cursed fruits or cursed fruits. Actually, you know what the craziest thing is? There was a One Piece video game called Giant Battle. I think it was one of the only video games that was actually dubbed by the 4Kids cast, and 4Kids actually handled the localization. And the translation for Seastone in that video game, do you want to guess what it was? It wasn't Seastone. It wasn't Sea Prism Stone. It wasn't Sea Tower Stone. What do you think they called it in this video game? Because in the 4Kids dub, it was just called, I think, Seastone or Sea Prism Stone. It was normal, but they called it something different in this video game. It was a weird translation. Maybe you're thinking they actually called it Kairoseki. No, they didn't call it Kairoseki. They didn't call it Karyoseki, no. They called it Cherry Stone. Cherry Stone. That was the translation they went with. Only example in the entire One Piece franchise of it ever being called that. Don't know, but that's what it's called. Anyway, though, so all Devil Fruit users know that they're weak to the ocean, so that kind of implies there is some kind of like energy coming off of the ocean, and maybe Seastone as well, like they can kind of sense it. The other example I came up with is maybe it's radioactive. Maybe Seastone is just radioactive, but only radioactive to Devil Fruit users, kind of like Kryptonite, where Kryptonite, well, okay, actually, oh, this is something I kind of remember from Justice League. Kryptonite is radioactive and poisonous to regular humans, but they have to be exposed to it for a long period of time, right? Isn't that how it works? Because it's obviously bad for Superman or any Kryptonian to come in contact with that stuff, but I think Lex Luthor had it with him for like so long that he eventually ended up becoming, like, he got cancer from it, just from that alone, right? So I think that's the case. So maybe it's a thing like Seastone is just radioactive material, and it just specifically affects Devil Fruit users. Might be something like that. Or we could get magic and aura and like hockey kind of into it, like it emanates the presence of the ocean goddess, and the ocean goddess hates the users of Devil Fruits, so there it is with that right there, okay? Yeah. Remember back during Wano, because Wano was stated to be like, you know, there's a lot of sea stone there, and the artisans of Wano really know how to fashion it into small quantities. So, like, when it comes to, like, making things like sea stone nails and sea stone bullets, we really hadn't seen that up until Wano. There were a lot of other examples, like in melee weapons mainly. By the way it's done in melee weapons, like, Smoker's staff is not 100% made out of sea stone. Only the tip is. Only the tip, ladies and gentlemen. So, honestly, what I think that you could probably do, like, you could take a Kanabo here, and instead of making the the whole thing out of Seastone, because remember, Seastone is fairly rare. You could probably just grab, like, little chunks of it. Like, if it does have the same fragility as a diamond does, you could just take a big chunk of Seastone, smash it, it shatters apart, and you can take little pieces. Because, as we've already explained, only one piece of this stuff, is enough to, like, render a Devil Fruit user weak or useless, even if they just get, like, grazed by the stuff. So you could take little chunks of Seastone, little pebbles, and just embed it in, like, a melee weapon, like a piece of wood, like this Kanabo. And this right here would be a Seastone Kanabo. This would be fairly effective. If a Devil Fruit user got smacked with this thing, they would go down, okay? So, yeah, it's probably like that. Not a lot of the weapons are made fully out of Seastone, right? So, in Wano, though, they have the artisans capable of making bullets, and that's why that's the first canonical example of us seeing Sea Prism bullets in Wano. And I was really upset that I was thinking at the end of Wano, holy crap, they got Sea Prism bullets. They have all these factories they just shut down. Do you know how many Sea Prism weapons that Orochi was probably manufacturing in these things? Like, they gave a Sea Prism gun to Modillo Man. Freaking Modillo Man. That means that they have to have a large quantity of this stuff, or at least enough that they can pass them out to Modillo Man. I highly doubt Kaido was up there with Orochi, like, whoa, finally we can produce Sea Prism bullets. And then they produced, like, one gun. It was one Sea Prism gun, and it only had like maybe 10 bullets, and they're like, all right, whoa, I will give this to my most trusted sniper in all of my crew, Modillo Man! And then Orochi and Kaido are both there, and Orochi's like, yes, I am Lord Orochi! Modillo Man, take this Sea Prism gun and use it in the prison! Ha ha ha! And Modillo Man is like, I am honored, Lord Orochi, Lord Kaido. He was the only one that had it. I doubt that. I severely doubt that. And they shut down all the factories, so you mean to tell me that Franky was like, so you got a whole bunch of factories filled with Sea Prism weapons, huh? And then Momonosuke's like, yeah, and we're shutting them all down. Yeah, that's great. So you mind if I just go? I mean, okay, if we're looking at this from a logical perspective, Franky should have loaded up on Sea Prism bullets, Sea Prism knives, Sea Prism ballistic missiles. He should have all of that crap loaded up on the Sunny. That could still be a thing. Could totally still be a thing. You know, it hasn't been referenced, but it could be. You know, I loaded up on some Sea Prism bullets in Wano. Weapons left. You know, it could be. But even if he didn't do that, because what would they do with the Sea Prism bullets? They would literally just have to chuck them in the ocean then. It'd be such a waste. Even if Franky didn't do that, though, they are now at Vegapunk's laboratory, where, yes, the artisans of Wano were the only ones capable of making Seastone and the bullets and stuff. I'm sure Vegapunk and his science would be every bit as capable of making Sea Prism bullets, Seastone swords, and, you know, all the pieces and everything like that. But also, you could go to the next level of this. I'm talking Seastone gas bombs, Seastone flashbangs, Seastone claymores. I'm talking the whole 9 yards, ladies and gentlemen. Franky should have access to this armory, okay? That would be the perfect level up for Franky. It would be the perfect level up. It's always been the perfect level up. I'm okay with Franky not even having hockey, all right? It would be armament hockey if anything, but like, he's a cyborg, he's an engineer, he's a technician. He doesn't just like, I don't need hockey, I just get, you know, upgrades. That's what he does. He's Franky, okay? Give him a Sea Prism arsenal, Oda. Give it to him. Come on, Franky needs it. Franky deserves it. Load up the FRU-4, the motorcycle with Sea Prism studded tires, and just run over Big Mom with Sea Prism studded tires. That's the kind of shit I want to see in my One Piece. Franky drops the Seastone nuke. You know, he's just... Oh. Okay. Final battle at Laugh Tale. Blackbeard pirates are there. Everybody's there. Marines are there. Admirals are there. Yonko are there. Everybody's there, right? They're all fighting Straw Hats. It's a tough fight. Lot of tough enemies to get to the One Piece. End of the chapter. Franky is just there with Usopp, and they're on the Sunny, and it's all banged up. It's damaged, and they're all beaten up. Maybe Franky's, you know, part of his shoulder ball got ripped off. Half of his face is, like, mangled. It's a tough fight. Usopp's missing an arm, you know. It's just like, oh, my God, what are we gonna do, Franky? We're getting killed out there. And then Franky's just like, don't worry, Usopp. we have the last-ditch effort. You know, the Franky final move. And he just, like, drops the Franky Super Seastone nuke. Break next week. 2-week break. 2-week break after that. After Franky drops the Seastone nuke. You know what's funny? That would not be the first time Franky has caused a giant nuclear explosion on an island. That would actually be the second time. Which is weird that it happened twice, but it did. Okay, anyway. So yeah, that's the video about Lilith's bubble gun, and a little bit more of an expansion on Devil Fruit powers there. You know, I'm not really sure about the bubble technology in and of itself, because we saw it was easily able to. The bubbles don't move that fast. S-Snake, granted, S-Snake is a seraphim. You know, they're like the strongest artificial beings in the world, but it seems like it's rather easy to dodge the bubbles once you know they're coming. So maybe Franky could upgrade that. If Franky doesn't seem like the kind of guy that would use a bubble gun, you know, he would figure out some way to make that more manly than firing bubbles. All right, he would fire something, you know, I don't know. Franky could figure it out. You give Franky access to that technology for 1 week, he could come up with some really cool anti-Devil Fruit user abilities, okay? So, yeah, Franky should have a full arm. I guess he doesn't, because if he did have, well, then again, okay. Let's say Franky did stock up on some Sea Prism bullets, some Seastone bullets at Wano. It's like, well, why didn't he use them against S-Snake? Well, S-Snake is a child. So I highly doubt Franky is just, weapons left! You know, just like, yeah, I don't think Franky's gonna do that against S-Snake, or any of the Seraphim for that matter, okay? You know, Franky's not, yeah, no. So, could still have him. Could still have him, there you go. Anyway, that's the video. Hope you guys enjoyed, that was fun. But now, moving on, we talked about Seastone. Now we can talk about sea snakes in this installment of Snake Facts. Snake Facts. Okay, so on today's episode of Snake Facts, yes, we're talking about sea snakes. I mentioned these in the last one, talking about how the Western taipan and Australia was the most venomous snake by far, even more venomous than sea snakes. And in fact, yes, I knew snakes were perfectly capable of swimming in the water. In fact, here's an interesting story. A couple years ago, I was out fishing with my dad at a lake, and we're just there fishing, and then my dad's like, oh, snake. And then we just look up, and there's a snake just swimming through the water, stopped in front of us, took off its top hat, and just like, gentlemen, be like, snake? Like, okay. And then it just kept on swimming. So obviously snakes, just with their tubular bodies, would be able to swim fairly well. So it doesn't really, you know, surprise me that there are snakes that literally spend their entire lives in the water, okay? Sea snakes. They are modified a little bit from regular terrestrial snakes. Their scales are a little bit different, as well as their tails are more evolved for, like, paddling. So paddle tails, so to speak. They also have a different gas exchange, so they can dive, you know, better, you know, the buoyancy and everything like that. However, they only drink fresh water. So, I mean, that's a thing. They are highly venomous, which would explain it because, you know, how many things lurk in the ocean. You pretty much have to have a high venom yield if you're going to live in the ocean. However, they are very prone to dry bites whenever they bite humans. And for that reason, actually, not a lot of people have died from sea snake bites. Even if you get bit by these things, you're probably not going to get envenomated because they just don't tend to do that all that often. In Australia, by the way, there was a death of a sea snake bite in 2018. However, before that bite, the last fatality from a sea snake bite was back in 1935. So that was a good over like 80 years of a difference between sea snake fatalities. So you can get bit by them, but they probably aren't going to kill you. Also, there's anti-venom for these types of snakes as well. If you do get bit, honestly enough, and you do get, you know, venom injected into you, you probably wouldn't feel it at first. It doesn't really tend to swell all that much. And in fact, you might not even notice you got bit. Eventually, you would feel headaches. Your tongue would feel very heavy. You'd feel very thirsty, nauseated, and you definitely got to seek medical treatment at that point. Very highly venomous. But honestly enough, you don't really get to feel it that much when you first get bit. So yeah, the Western taipan, definitely more deadly. But in terms of like venom, they can yield a lot. So there's that. Okay, that was the video. Hope you guys enjoyed. And yeah, you live another day, Barry. You live another day. Just everybody go out and just get yourself a dictionary. Yeah.